we are here to talk about my top 10 favorite sci-fi fantasy reads for 2023. So exciting. This list is always hard to come up with because I feel like I'm pretty good at picking sci-fi and fantasy things that I'm gonna like. So there's always like an embarrassment of options here. This year is no different. We have a lot of 4.5 and 5 stars, so it was hard to cull through everything. But we're gonna start at the bottom and work our way up, and these are my favorite ones I read from December 2022 to November 2023. Some of them were new releases, but some of them are backlist. And this is just the ones that I like the best. Some of these I would not argue are better, like the best quality necessarily, but all of them are ones that I really loved. So with that being said, let's start with The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by S.A. Chakraborty, Shannon Chakraborty. I decided to slot this in at number 10. There was a few ones that I was trying to decide. The number 10 slot was the hardest because I was like, several of these I could definitely make an argument belong on this list. I decided to go for this because it was just fun. This is very action-adventure in its kind of plot and overall tone. And I think that this is just the start of what I'm sure is going to be a really fun series. I'm actually not going to keep going in the series until all the books are out, because I think it would be a really good candidate for binging, like just sitting down and reading them all back to back to back, because by the end I definitely was like, oh, I want to know what happens next. It's sort of pitched as high fantasy lady pirate, and I think that that's pretty accurate. I saw a lot of people really loving this one this year. I think it's kind of a crowd pleaser. So if you're looking for action adventure fun in fantasy, this I feel like is the book for you. Also, if you can hear my cats fighting over who gets to sleep under the ottoman, I guess that's just where we're at today. Okay. Next up is a sci-fi mystery called The Mimicking of Known Successes by Malka Older. This was just such a me book because I love sci-fi mystery. That is a subgenre that I really enjoy. I love that it's a novella. It's got kind of a romantic element to it because it's two people who used to be in a relationship, and one is a professor, one is a detective. The detective is investigating the death of a different professor, so she comes back and is kind of enlisting the help of her old girlfriends. So, there's some like tension there, but it's set on Jupiter in the future. It's a lot about sort of like climate change and the destruction of humans to every environment we put ourselves in. This is just really my kind of book in terms of its genre and its project. I will say that Malka Older's writing style is very distinctive, and it took me a little bit to get into it, but once I did, I actually quite liked it. But just know that her writing it's kind of hard to describe unless you're in it, but she has an interesting sort of cadence to her sentences. But this is going to be a series. There's at least one more that's coming out. It's coming out next year. I'm really looking forward to that. I liked her characters. I liked this world. So yeah, this was a very me book, and I'm excited that there's going to be more. And then number 8 is the top of our 4 stars already because we have so many 4.5 and 5s. And I should say that if I were going to assess this series as a whole, I would probably give it a 4.5 as a trilogy. But in terms of a discrete book, I would say that The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie is my favorite of the 3. I think that the direction, old news, right? Like everybody knows and loves this. This is not a unique opinion, but I really just love the direction that this series takes. It is definitely grimdark for sure, but I think that it actually has more themes than some of the sort of like edgelordy kind of fantasy that I've like tried to get into at times. It actually has something more to say, it feels like, about class and religion. I don't know. I really liked the direction that this series went, particularly at the end of book 2 going into book 3. I was like, yes, this was a choice, and it's a choice I like. And then I really like in book 3 seeing the sort of the parts of those choices play themselves out. Characters are really memorable and distinctive. I have a particular soft spot in my heart for Logan Ninefingers, but of course, Galactica is an icon, and I really love where he ends up by the end of this. Yeah, this is just a really thought-provoking, well-written book, and each book in the series I think is better written than the previous one, which is really cool. So I'm definitely going to keep going in this overall world at some point once I've made some progress on some existing series that I have on my TBR. But I'm glad that Leanna's I'm glad I didn't disappoint Leanna, for one thing. We buddy read this together and I was very worried I was going to like call her baby ugly, but I liked all of these a lot. And as a whole, I would give them 4.5 stars. For just this one, I'll give it 4, but a very strong 4. And I'm excited to read more from this author in this world. Similarly, we got three. We got 3 series endings in a row here. So starting our 4.5 star territory off, I'm going to go with The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. Look, you don't need me to tell you this is good. This trilogy won the Hugo Award every year when a new one came out. I think the reason I wanted to put this on here, the reason I gave it 4.5 stars, so I actually think, okay, controversy. I think that this series as a whole would have been better as a duology. I think if like you'd put some of what's in book 2 in book 1 and then most of it into this book, I think pacing wise it would have been a little bit more successful overall as a trilogy, but far be it from me to dictate to the queen herself, N.K. Jemisin. But anyway, I really liked coming out of the second book and into this book where this book goes with this story as a whole. The answers we get in this book I think are so interesting in terms of the world building, so much so that some of the like way it's conveyed I'm okay with, because I think that the content of what's being delivered is so interesting. I also really like what this is doing with mother-daughter relationships and what it has to say about all of that. Yeah, I just think that this is a really thematically rich and world-building rich book that I don't know that I emotionally connected with the series in general as strongly as other people seem to have, but I just have such a respect for it in terms of its craft and the writing and the world building and the themes and the character journeys that like it feels undeniable to me why this ended up being such a big hit. This just ended up feeling, yeah, like a really satisfying ending to an incredibly high quality trilogy. Okay, and then rounding out endings of series, and look guys, I know I'm alone in the wilderness on this. Okay, I'm not claiming that this is why these are favorites, okay? Favorites. If I'm being honest in terms of what I personally enjoyed reading in fantasy this year, I cannot deny that The Blood of Dragons goes over both Joe Abercrombie and N.K. Jemisin in terms of like, I don't know what to tell you. I really like the Rainwild Chronicles quartet. Thematically, I thought it was great. I really love learning more about the dragons. That's one of my favorite parts of the Realm of the Elderling series. And I just like this, okay? So I get that nobody else does, but I do. And yeah, I really loved where this ended up and kind of how it sets up some things that we then see paid off in the final trilogy. This just worked for me. So I feel a little defensive, but it's my list and my rules, and I'm putting this at number 6, and I gave it 4.5 stars. So deal with it. And then a YA entry into the list. This is probably my favorite YA speculative thing I read this year. And I also I don't know. YA fantasy is appealing less and less to me as time goes on. I have really liked YA fantasy as an adult, so I don't think it's totally that. I don't know. The direction of some of it just doesn't jive with what I like about younger fantasy. And A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher, to me, just encapsulates the things that I like in YA, which is younger protagonists who are not world-weary, who are not acting like adults, who are actually acting like kids. And I just think that the magic in this one is so inventive. It's a girl who she can use things she's baked to come to life, sort of like almost like a golem kind of situation. So she has like this little gingerbread man who she's made, who's her golem, and all of these other magic users who have like more useful magic have been deployed in this war and it's going badly, and there's a serial killer and someone's got to kind of like defend the homeland kind of a thing. and her city calls upon her, and she has to try to make this baking magic effective. So I don't know. I really love the humor of T. Kingfisher. I really enjoyed and was charmed by the main character, and that she isn't acting like an adult, she is acting like a teenager. And I just thought that this was really fun. This is a very fun book, and that's part of what I like in a YA fantasy. So I decided to put that one at number 5 on the strength of it being my favorite YA kind of speculative thing I read. At number 4 is another T. Kingfisher, and I just put The Wonder Engine and The Clockwork Boys together because really this is one book. So it is technically separated into 2 books, but it reads like one. I think Clockwork Boys is better than Wonder Engine in terms of its pacing, but I really love this overall story. You start off with this group of criminals who have been sentenced to death, and they are sent on essentially like a suicide mission on behalf of their city, who is in this never like kind of total war with this other city that has this, again, sort of like golem type, like steampunky magic. And so these different criminals band together. There's a little bit of romance, which is something I enjoy in her books. But it's actually quite dark in terms of what happens in these. But her humor kind of carries you through it so that it doesn't feel as dark as what it really is. There's also some very funny things about like religion and misogyny. I don't know. This was the last fantasy reading experience I had this year where I just felt completely transported and I just couldn't put it down. So I really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to continuing in this World of the White Rat series she has going. Okay, we are to the top 3, and these are all 5 stars. So The Last Quintista is a middle grade sci-fi. This is my favorite middle grade speculative thing I read this year. And when I tell you that this is devastating, this book made me cry. It hurts in the best way. That's what this book is. Because it's just so devastatingly sad. It's about, the last spaceships off of Earth before it's destroyed by a meteor or a comet or whatever. The beginning of this reminds me of how I felt at the beginning of Up, of just like, it takes you on a full, devastating story in just a few pages. Yeah, it's middle grade, but it covers some heavy stuff. And I feel like some of the metaphor in here might be around like immigration and kind of some of the feelings around that for a young person as they're leaving their home and going to a new place, maybe leaving some of their family behind. I don't know. This is so beautiful and sad and so good. This is one of my favorite middle grade things I've ever read. So with that in mind, love this. Totally devastated by it and highly recommend. Okay, and then we're at 1 and 2. So if I'm thinking about individual books, I probably would swap order of this, but I think one of them has like a more holistic reading experience than the other. So I'm gonna say that my number 2 is Mammoths at the Gate by Nevo. This is my favorite entry in the Singing Hills cycle so far. Some of this might be because I read this around Father's Day. I've lost my father, and a lot of this is about grief and the loss of sort of a parental figure. So that was really resonating with me. But I just love learning more about Cleric Chi and the monastery and kind of where they come from and their culture. Yeah, I just absolutely loved what this had to say. Storytelling and grief and loss and friendship and how different seasons of things, how like life is all about these different times and seasons, and that seasons come and go. And I don't know, I just thought it was so beautiful. It's my favorite one in the series yet, and I can't wait for the next entry. These are always such just a delight in my reading year now. And with that, in the top slot, I'm basically just putting the full final trilogy in the Realm of the Elderlings series. I did finish the Realm of the Elderlings this year, which was a major accomplishment for me. Because I have been working on this for the last 3 years. And I really feel like I built up my fantasy reading muscles with this. It had been a long time since I'd tried to read these really chunky, big fantasy novels. And you can even see as time went on, I just got like more able to read them and process them more quickly. So I think that's kind of cool. This is the ending of the series, at least for now. I have heard rumors that Robin Hobb may be writing a new trilogy with one of the new characters that's introduced in this series. I would love, obviously, but if we never got it, I do think that this is a really satisfying ending, and all three of these books are absolutely powerhouses. My least favorite is Assassin's Fate, just because of very spoilery things I can't get into, but some of the way that things ended, I had some questions about. But Fool's Assassin and Assassin's Quest, I gave both of these 5 stars. If I had to pick one book, I would say Fool's Assassin, but they're just the new things that happen in the world in this, in terms of some of the magic and some of the possibilities, as well as the way this trilogy brings back the 4 previous sub-series in the overall realm of the Elderling series, and like get so many things paid off. It's just so satisfying, and to see the like poignancy of seeing Fitz throughout the course of his entire life is just so, like, it's just so much about the end of that, and how, again, I feel like my top 3 are all just a lot about grief now that I'm thinking about it, and sort of just that, like, yeah, life has a beginning, middle, and end, and we spend a lot of our beginning and middle kind of trying to deny the fact that the end is going to come, but the end does come, and that can be, there's like a beauty in the sadness of that. And I feel like this trilogy, this last one, is really, yeah, kind of exploring that. So, this trilogy definitely made me weep. And I think as a whole, that reading experience did bump out Mammoths at the Gate, but I will say it's hard for me to parse these individual books into feelings. It's more the like holistic experience. So I guess technically I'm saying Fool's Assassin is my top book, but you know, again, my list, my rules. So that was my favorites of sci-fi and fantasy for 2023 reading. I've got some exciting things on my sci-fi fantasy docket for next year, so there's always an embarrassment of riches on this list. I rarely struggle on this one to find things. It's more a question of like, ugh, what do I have to leave off? So let me know how your 2023 reading went in SFF. Let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about. I mentioned a lot of series conclusions. So yeah, anyway, if you've gotten all the way to the end of those series, let me know. I also hopefully was vague enough that I didn't spoil anything. So probably couldn't say as much about some of these as I would maybe would in other circumstances. But anyway, all that to say, hope you liked it. If you did, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!